think it's really important that you map out the client's expectations and our expectations really early on. So when we do the kind of discovery phase, we gather all those insights and we define their kind of business objectives, and then we always choose one goal that's measurable, and we call this kind of our like North Star.
Welcome to the first Web Creators Success webinar. I'm Ben Pines, and today we'll take a deep dive and learn how the Something Familiar agency went from being employees to building a successful agency. Our guests today were one of the 5 winners of Elementor's End of the Year Showcase. Something Familiar redesigned the websites of an award-winning technology company based in the US. This is not the only time that one of their projects was featured on our showcase. Based in Bristol, UK, Something Familiar is an experienced group of creatives doing the work they love for people they love to work with. Hi, Briony, Rich, and Ollie.
Hey.
Hi.
How are you guys?
Good, thanks.
Good, thank you.
All good, all good.
Excited to be here and talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Currently getting harassed by my cat, so he's going to sit here and make me look like a Bond villain, which is cool.
Ollie, please introduce us to your team.
So I'm Ollie, this is Bryony and Rich. Obviously, we're all co-founders of Something Familiar, which is a design-led branding and digital agency based in Bristol, UK. Currently, it's only Rich working from the studio because we're in a national lockdown. So me and Bry are doing our best to work on anything we find around the house, whether that's an ironing board or a kitchen table. Very much looking forward to getting back and working together in the studio again.
And where does the name Something Familiar come from?
I think a big part of like our process on any kind of branding journey is naming. We spend a lot of time doing that. I think naming is one of those really difficult things that kind of like, sometimes it just happens. Sometimes it takes a lot of time. We went through, obviously with it being our own company, it's 10 times harder. Everybody knows that. We went through like a kind of like thorough sort of vetting process, throwing names at the wall and trying to find things that kind of aligned with our goals and our values. And the word familiar, I think, just meant something to us because a major part of our model is having a kind of direct relationship with a client. The idea of being familiar really kind of like we were drawn to that. So I think adding also something to that makes the name super versatile. So if you take familiar away, for example, you can apply it to something good, something positive, something fun, something great. It lends itself to a really nice language around our brand as a creative company as well.
Which that personal approach is actually at the core of your agency, because you started before you built the agency, you were all employees, right?
Yeah, we're all kind of from integrated marketing backgrounds. Brian and Rich spent a lot of their career working in and around London. I've kind of been a little bit all over the place. But yeah, it's we've like I say, we've kind of previously worked in a team at an agency in the UK, and that was kind of an integrated agency. So what I mean by that is instead of it being just design focused, for example, there's also a team for paid media, a team for account managing, a team for PR and tech, as well as, of course, the most important department, which is the creative. So yeah, we worked in a tight-knit team together there and kind of developed a great working relationship. But our role within that kind of, we'd be working on like a really wide variety of projects, whether that's, full-blown creative campaign or a website or some outdoor advertisement, big branding jobs. And we've even worked on TV ads, which is really cool. So working within that kind of environment, we thought was great, but felt like there may be a different approach to working that worked better for our kind of personal and team values. And that's when we decided to start Something Familiar. So one of the main things, like I mentioned earlier, that to address was this kind of disconnect between creative and the client, and which is like not, a more traditional agency structure would have like an account manager and like a creative director, acting as a mediator or a manager between the client sort of thing. So we felt like, we created this kind of dynamic that was more open to the idea of collaboration and a direct link to clients. And that was really important for us. But I also believe that that's an extremely beneficial thing for a client. So it's less of a traditional agency structure, but I think we believe in a more kind of democratic, rewarding, and ultimately value-driven approach.
So you structured a more close connection with the actual client. Does this affect do you feel this affects the end result?
It's certainly, I think it does, because there's no mixed messaging. When you've got a kind of direct link with a client, you're truly understanding what their needs are, and you're able to kind of discuss things with them on a level where the client isn't always right, and neither are we, sort of thing. But when you work together, you always come to a solution that works best for you both. And I think when there's kind of like the in-between bit, stuff can get lost in translation. And I just think ultimately you get a far better result working that way, or we found that you do anyway.
Yeah, less bureaucracy and more communications for sure.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about the sort of clients you work with? Is it a specific niche?
Yeah, sure. So when we started the company, like I was mentioning earlier with the naming and stuff, we sat down, we wrote our values down, what we stand for, what our goals were. And amongst various things, we really like the idea of this mantra, do good, get good. That's kind of what stuck as our kind of internal mantra, which obviously its simple form means, in a kind of karmic manner, that the idea of you doing good things for good people will ultimately lead to you getting good things back. So we live in Bristol in the UK, which is really culturally rich city, a very proud city, and it's got deep roots in kind of sustainable development. So it's actually the green capital of the UK, I think. So we're working in an environment surrounded by other companies that share similar values to us. And we also get a lot of work, local kind of work, which does tend to be of the same kind of nature. So currently we're working with, back to kind of like the sort of clients that we love to work with, we're working on a brand new project, which is a strategy, brand refresh and website build for a company called Greenhouse PR. They're basically an ethically driven PR agency. They work with companies that share similar values to drive positive and social change, environmental change as well. I won't say too much about the project because it's so fresh, but it's something that we're really enjoying. We're definitely going to be using Elementor for it. And pushing it from a design, user and functionality perspective. But that's definitely our kind of the clients we love to work with.
From the moment a client closes a contract, what does the process look like?
Well, we ask a lot of questions. We call this kind of like the discovery phase. And this is when we look into the client's business, their sort of objectives, the competitors. And we kind of normally do this kind of a small brand audit where we look at how they look and feel and sound currently. It really kind of helps us to sort of step into their shoes and see things from their perspective, but also more importantly from their customers' perspective.
So the initial step is like questioning, and then is there a give and take? How does the communication work with the client?
So if it's a large website project, we will always have a process that we set in place early on where we ask for a weekly check-in meeting, and we have a document that basically shows the timeline that we're suggesting, and it marks the weekly agenda. It's all sort of very structured, so everyone can jump into that project and they can add tasks, they can ask questions, and we're always very responsive. We're always at either the end of the phone or at the end of the email, or we're always there to answer questions and to just sort of collaborate back and forth.
So is there a certain business model that you see yourself following? Like, do you offer additional services besides the actual build itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think our business model is really around investing and developing strong and lasting relationships with our clients. Like, we've talked about it a few times now already, but we really want to deliver value to our clients. So we never do like just enough. We're always looking to improve on that, and we'll, you know, like Ollie said, we'll challenge them, we'll be constructive. We want to gain our clients' respect, so we're not yes people, and it's very much a two-way street. Like we learn a lot from our clients as well, and you know, once they're part of like the network that we have, we often like form connections between our clients too. In regard to if we offer any extra services, we always, with website projects specifically, we always offer ongoing support, 30 days of ongoing support once we've completed the project. But often what we'll find is that you know, we've given value, so much value to the client, that they want to keep us for other things, and that's the goal of the, you know, of us, of the business really, is to keep those clients and to keep that relationship.
And how do you measure that that satisfaction, or that the fact that you actually deliver the result? How do you make sure that the client is satisfied?
I think it's really important that you map out the client's expectations and our expectations really early on. So when we do the kind of discovery phase, we gather all those insights and we define their kind of business objectives, and then we always choose one goal that's measurable, and we call this kind of our like North Star. There'll be loads of other measurable goals and KPIs, but this is always the one thing that we measure against, and it's like the most important thing. So we're always collaborative, and we, you know, we never, there's never a ta-da moment where we just kind of dump something on the client and expect them to love it. It's very much an iterative process. Sorry, I'll say that again. It's very much an iterative process, and it's, you know, a collaboration back and forth, and they're always involved at every step. Can
you give us an example of a North Star like this?
It was lead gen. It was HubSpot form completion. Basically, it was to drive more leads to the website. Ultimately, that was the North Star, and that was the goal for the. And there was a lot of other goals, but that was the kind of most measurable one. So there was far more to the journey than that, and far more to the website build than that. But that was kind of really, ultimately, they wanted to drive more traffic through their HubSpot forms on their website. And we took a step back and we analyzed what their website looked like. We looked at their user journeys, and we looked at design and their positioning. And we kind of just stripped it all back and kind of started from, okay, this is our one goal. How are we going to achieve that through strategy, through design, and through kind of web design, basically. So that's the one metric that that guided us on that project. But there was also a lot of other aspects to that. Like they had a lot of blog content, and they wanted to position themselves as kind of thought leaders, and so we also had to keep that in mind. And yeah, it's not usually just one, but that was the key one in that case.
I think that's smart, because on the one hand, there's a back and forth where you take the requests of the client, but there's always more than one person of contact. And this way, if you have one metric that you keep, you make sure that everyone on the client's team are actually satisfied because they see the result, not just the person of contact, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was a business decision. That metric, that's the ultimate goal of the business is to drive more leads. But there was also a lot of positioning. But it helps keep focus.
I think for any business, they're always going to want to see return on investment. So the kind of mapping out stage and collating of their existing analytics, or for example, if we're talking about a website project, obviously there's a lot of variables in running a creative or marketing business, and a lot of ways that you can gauge your ROI. But I think it's an essential part of the process to map that out and know where you're at the beginning, because otherwise you don't have anything to compare it to at the end. And ultimately then your job, is not, you're not able to prove value, and the client isn't able to see results.
For sure. If we're speaking of the client expectations, one of the challenges of any agency is actually dealing with scope creep and making sure you don't get stalled with building and completing the project. Do you have a special way to deal with scope creep?
I think this is really tricky because it's very likely to happen. And I think the important thing is to just not be afraid of that. I think scope creep happens for two reasons. One, you haven't really been clear in the initial setup about the requirements that you've agreed with the client. And two, more positively, it's because you're doing so well that the client wants, and you're adding value that the client wants to add more to the project. So I think either way, you just need to be honest and upfront and address the fact that it's out of scope and come to a solution with your client.
And a key part of that, I think, is, again, going back to what we were talking about, mapping out. We'll always put together a proposal, at least we will anyway, where we're mapping out all of the deliverables, everything that we want, that we and the client want to get out of the project. And then obviously, if there's scope creep that is outside of those deliverables, we'll usually work out a way of working so that we can achieve those results. Or add them as an addition to the kind of initial proposal. But Bri is right; it does always usually happen, but it's for positive reasons only.
And where does Elementor come in terms of streamlining these processes?
So what's really good about Elementor is that we can all use it. So we're not reliant on just having one developer to come in and do the build or make changes. We've all got the skills. So any one of us could jump on the project and maybe tweak a copy or progress the build that's happening, the bigger project that's happening at that time. And the fact that it's also super easy to learn. So even our new employees can get up to speed really quickly and help with those projects too. So it's really good for that.
I want to talk to you a bit about how you approach each project. Is there like a toolkit or a set of templates or some sort of assets that you already have that help you kind of get started on a new project faster?
Not really, no, to be honest. We don't, there's no kind of design templates that we take between projects. We like to start all our designs from scratch. And I should add, we don't design in Elementor, we design in Adobe XD, and then we transfer those designs to Elementor. So no, we don't kind of recycle any templates through Elementor. But what we do, which is interesting, is we create a kind of master page or a style guide. And this is basically where we can apply all our global styling to one page, and that will kind of then set the rules for the rest of the website. So we do build a kind of a hidden page which has all the kind of frequently used assets for the build, and then we can just copy and paste from that page, and that does really speed up the process. But no, there's no kind of crossover from different websites, unless there's something really unique we've done in one website, like there was some custom code, for example. There may be something unique that oh, that's really good, we can repurpose that. So we'd export that template, upload that into the new site, but completely redesign it so it doesn't look like the old template, obviously, just to transfer the code across and the functionality that was custom.
So you don't actually start with the homepage, you start from a style sheet page or general page, and then infer from it to the rest of the pages, right?
Yeah. Typically, we kind of, because Elementor's, it's all built in sections, we can build a master page which has got a lot of the same sections in it, and then we can just, recycle those throughout the website. The homepage, though, is typically the first page that does get built, but it usually gets built alongside the master page, I guess.
I think the interesting thing is about kind of having a sort of integrated offering in terms of like the agency is that we often have the opportunity to work from, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the ground up on projects, which means that like early on we're able to work on the kind of strategy, the values, which all link into the kind of the rationale and your logical decisions on design, like why you make design decisions. So we'll often work on like the kind of brand guidelines like prior to that, and then find ways of kind of implementing that into our design. But like Rich said, I think it's really beneficial both for us and for the client to build in a kind of modular fashion, so that if once the project's handed over, there's the guys, the team, whoever is running the website has something to refer back to that has kind of all of these modules that we've built. They've almost got their own kind of canvas that they can kind of take stuff out of, create a new page. You're almost making them a website builder within a website builder, you know, even simplifying what is already a really intuitive and simple process even more.
Oh, that's perfect. So this branding and strategy, was this something you always offered beside the actual build, or was it something you gradually added?
It's definitely something that's intrinsic into our nature as designers. I think we can't just make something look good. There has to be a reason. There needs to be a problem that we're solving. So this strategic part of it has always been there, and it is something that we've always offered. And you know, it normally comes hand in hand with website projects, because when people are looking at a refresh, they're normally looking at everything. They're not just looking at the website. They want to sort of rethink about how they're coming across in a digital space. So how do we look and how do we sound? So it makes sense to come from a base of strategy before we move into design.
There's certainly two different types of designers out there, you know, people that just design to make stuff look good or what they think looks good, and people that design for a reason. And I think that like Bryce said, we're designers first and foremost. So that's intrinsic within our company kind of. And I think everybody's surrounded by bad design, right? Whether it's at your local cafe or at your barber's, it's everywhere. So it's always been a personal goal to us to make sure that when we're delivering design, that it's, you know, it's got purpose and meaning, and it provides value, and it communicates fundamentally.
Oh, that's super important.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, it can affect anything, not just a website, but a restaurant you're in, or it has so much effect.
Sure. If someone says to you, like, why have you made that decision? You need to be able to answer that, right? So if someone says, why have you made this way, or why have you made it that way, then there needs to be a reason behind that. Or even better, they shouldn't be asking a question, because you should see why it's been made that way, right? So.
It's like Paris. Why do people love Paris so much? I guess because it's well designed.
And the food's good.
So do you have plugins or tools or themes that you usually work besides Elementor, of course, on various website projects?
Yeah, we do. We do rely on kind of a core set of plugins alongside Elementor. We've kind of got plugins that we always install even before we start building. If it's a fresh build, so there's a few plugins like advanced custom fields. That's always really useful.
Oh yeah.
Code snippets, we use that because we don't like editing theme files. So any custom code goes into code snippets, and it keeps it away from the theme. Custom post types, also, you know, it's good tool. It's used a lot. And then for backup, we like to use Updraft. It's really good, super easy backup service, backup to our Google Drive, or super simple to use. And then we've got an optimization plugin. We've got a license with WP Rocket. We really like that one. And of course, Yoast for SEO. But then beyond that, those are kind of what we always install alongside Elementor and Elementor Pro. We do find that there is a really couple useful design additions to Elementor. So there's one called Ele Custom Skin, which helps us design loop templates for custom post skins. We use that one a lot. And there's another really cool one. It's a small one, and it's really new, but it's called Elementor Supercat. And within Elementor Supercat, there is a post filter bar, so you can add filters to your posts. Makes it super simple. So those two usually get added alongside Elementor. We try to steer clear from the large plugins that have like 100 add-ons. We only like to use what we really need, and we do like to try and keep it all. We don't like to add plugins for the sake of adding plugins. Those are our kind of design tools alongside Elementor. I mean, every project different, so different solutions need to be found sometimes. But what recently we've started doing as well is not just providing a good design solution for the client, but also make it easier for them to use WordPress. The WordPress dashboard is probably the worst designed thing ever. It's so cluttered. There's so much stuff on there. So we try and strip that back. And there's a couple of plugins that help with that too. So there's one called Admin Menu Editor, and you can just really simplify the kind of menu on the left in the WordPress dashboard. You can hide a lot of things that the client doesn't need to access, or make it so much easier for a client that's not a WordPress pro. Make it so much simpler for them. And there's another plugin called Wicked Folders. If you've got a lot of posts or a lot of pages, you can just put pages into folders, and it just organization is really useful as well. So
amazing.
We've kind of got a few plugins that we like to apply along outside of Elementor. Yeah, for sure.
I'm glad to tell you that we're actually in 3.1 Pro, which is probably out when this video is out. We'll have like custom code. You'll be able to put custom code in one place, one less plugin.
Yeah.
The list. Can you tell me like how much do your clients use the website?
Every client is different, I should say. So some clients, they don't update their website that frequently, and perhaps they just do blogging, they just do posts. But other clients, they really like to kind of take control of their site and, update their homepage, or, try and change their user journeys, or try and optimize it to meet their goals. So we have a conversation with the client at the start, and we try and understand what their frustrations are. A lot of the time, their frustrations are that they can't make simple changes to their website. They've got to, go to a developer to make a simple change to their homepage, or to, I don't know, add in a new hero banner or something like that. So it's different for every client, but what we found is that they all really value having the control back. And that's what we really like to give. We like to make it so easy for them that they can just pick up our design and just, make new pages as they see fit. And we try and build with that in mind as well. So we try and build it simply, so it's really easy for them to copy paste and go from there, really.
Giving them creative tools, that's priceless, I think. So how do you make sure the site is fast? You mentioned the Yoast SEO and WP Rocket. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So we always try and build optimally. So we don't add too much clutter. So we try and avoid, putting too many intersections inside intersections, and having really long pages. And also to the SEO kind of point there, we always stack our H1, H2, make sure kind of things are tagged appropriately. But we also really conscious about image size and image quality. So they kind of come hand in hand. So we optimize our images in Photoshop before we even upload them to the media library. We don't use plugins to optimize our images, or rarely do we do that. We like to optimize them first, so we have control and we can see the quality before we upload it to the site. And then we use SVGs where appropriate. For icons, SVGs are good. And PNGs where it's appropriate, again, PNGs versus JPEGs. So we just, we make decisions at every point. And finally, what has been really, really helpful is the introduction of Lottie. So we're using Lotties now, where previously we'd have to use an MP4, or that they're very, very lightweight as well, and they can communicate a lot. So they're brilliant too.
Designers love the Lottie integration that we've built, and it's very helpful in creating sites that look different.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Going back finally. At the end of our build, we go through an optimization phase. That's where we can kind of configure WP Rocket beyond just turning it on. And for this, we've met a really good guy through the Facebook community called Maxime Desrosiers, and he's got a website called Element.how. he's brilliant, and he's helped us optimize websites, but also he's helped us solve really technical problems that are kind of outside the skill set of a designer. So we come to him with a challenge, but he's based in Canada, and we've built a relationship with him, and we often collaborate with him on aspects which are outside of the realms of normal Elementor stuff. So he's helped us a good few times, and he helps us with our optimization through WP Rocket.
And do you get final results like page load time?
Yeah.
What kind of results are you seeing?
We always take a page speed test, and we do a kind of audit at the start of a website refresh. So if we set our benchmarks, and this, this highlights what we want to improve on. So yeah, we take a speed test at the start, and we take one at the end, basically. And we always aim to improve that speed test. Sometimes there are factors that are out of our control. For example, if a client uses a server that we wouldn't recommend, that sometimes impacts speed. But where we can, we always aim to improve on their existing load times.
I know there's such a huge concept among mostly developers, I think, of they don't want to jeopardize speed and they prefer to create like boring boxed websites because they think they don't want to jeopardize their speed and load time. But again, what you said, like optimizing images, servers, all that work, you can produce much more beautiful and effective websites with that load fast.
It's certainly a balancing act, because you want engagement. You don't just want speed. You want speed alongside engagement. So of course you could strip a website back and make it very, very fast, but you'd also sacrifice a lot of things that people engage with. So yeah, there's always a balancing act.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned ACF. So how do you deal, and of course this is used mostly in more advanced websites. So how do you deal with like advanced websites and more elaborate websites? Is there a special process there?
Yeah, so I mean, organization, again, it just comes back to organization. So at the start of the process, we kind of identify the purposes of the website, and we will, like you said, about setting a North Star metric, and we just work backwards. So we identify what the end goal is and work backwards from there. It usually means we simplify things. So typically websites get built on top of and built on top of and built on top of, and things get cluttered and disorganized, and you end up with loads of different categories and loads of different post types. So we challenge a client and we say, what do you really need, and what are your goals? And usually 9 times out of 10, that it's about simplifying and making it easier for everyone, users and clients. So we strip a lot of things out and we start fresh in some sort of way or another. So recently on the Appcast website, they had a lot of custom post types, and we went through a process where we actually recategorized their entire kind of library of blog posts, resources, videos, webinars, and some of these linked internally, some of these linked externally to HubSpot landing pages. And there wasn't really a quick way of doing it. We basically, the client helped out. The client was super good at this, and they built a spreadsheet, and it was basically a spreadsheet of all of the posts on the website and what category they belong to currently and what category they need to be changed to. Then we found a plugin which helped speed things up. We could do bulk category or post type changing. So we could do that relatively quick. It was a bit of a laborious process, but we just go through it, and it just kind of comes back to identifying what the goals are of the website, and usually that means simplifying things.
It sounds like a very smart process you're describing, like an architect planning out a lot of planning. It saves you so much trouble along the way.
Yeah, it sounds like it, but it's taken a long time to get there.
Yeah, it's been a learning curve, like, for sure. But yeah, the Appcast website, definitely has had probably the most complex amount of content to deal with so far.
Interesting. Since you are using Elementor, a lot of the things you're using are, widgets and require less coding. So how has this transition into less coding on the one hand, but you mentioned you also, when needed, you insert code that's custom. So can you tell us a bit how does it look now in relation to the past, and how has this impacted your workflow?
So ultimately, it has just allowed us to maintain design control and maintain kind of communication, like control of the communications and understanding of the task at hand. And also we can build collaboratively in tandem, so we can build on different aspects of the site once those designs are improved. So there's often times where there'll be 2 or 3 people building the same website, working on different pages, working from a reference point. So, working from Adobe XD, transferring that into Elementor designs. So the build part actually happens relatively quick. So I guess that's really sped up the workflow and kind of, I'm not sure if it's shortened timelines of projects, but it definitely it removes a point of contact. It removes a level of communication where we have to pass over our designs to a developer and then manage that developer to ensure our designs are being brought to life.
Yeah, I think that works like hand in hand kind of with this new kind of agency dynamic where it's kind of like direct to client. I mean, this has given us so much control, so it allows us to just work within our own kind of design bubble, and just get things exactly how we want them. And often that traditional, again, I go back to kind of traditional agency methods or traditional method of working designer to developer to client sort of thing takes a long time because of the nature of the ways that we think, like you just mentioned a minute ago, but some developers will just be focused on speed and efficiency, and likewise some designers will just be focused on aesthetic, and I think we try and find the balance of both of those to achieve the best result possible. So it's definitely changed our workflow for the better in that sense.
It's interesting. I never thought about the fact that when you're working in a sort of waterfall where every part a cascading way, and now you can actually work asynchronically on different parts of the design. I never thought about
100%. It makes such a difference. There's almost like the idea of the process being kind of stripped apart or manipulated, which is just inevitable when you're going through filter after filter sort of thing, to use a metaphor. Like the ability to kind of rein that back in and keep full control of all of that, and ultimately just leads to a much more kind of valuable result, I think. And we're finding anyway it works really well within our kind of dynamic.
And can you tell me an example where you did use custom code and how that worked?
Most recently, an example on the Appcast website, we've got Lottie animations on some of the product pages, and as you scroll, those Lottie animations play. They trigger. It triggers when you hit a certain page point. It triggers the animation to play for a certain number of frames. So as you're scrolling down, it triggers the animation to play. You continue to scroll, it triggers the animation to play, and we match that up with text. So yeah, basically, as you scroll, the animation plays through at the right point at the right time. That was kind of a most recent example of where we enhanced the functionality with a bit of code.
Great. And yeah, Lottie animations, if anyone is a designer and not yet using it, or any web creator, definitely you should look into it because it's a great tool. What elements do you factor in when planning a new website project, and what are the costs that are involved?
So generally, there's not a great deal of sort of the base costs other than our sort of time and what we call the project costs. But we do tend to factor in a few sort of third-party costs. So like paying for Elementor or for like our dev site hosting and any other kind of subscriptions that we would need. But generally, we don't tend to include any other third-party costs in our projects. So more so design things, so like typefaces and stock photography, that's all normally charged separately to the quote that we give the client.
So, Bri, can you tell us a bit about the process of actually pricing and evaluating the cost, like your proposal and price estimate?
We like to work on a fixed project kind of rate, and we use something called value-based pricing. It's quite hard to sort of pin down and explain to you as an exact science, but it's really very much related to the sort of value that we think the project can bring to the business that we're quoting to. You know, we really believe that our products and our services are good value for money, and normally like our clients, you know, agree with that. And yeah, so sorry, I can't give you like, you know, we do this and then we add that and add this, and because that's just not how it works with value-based pricing. But I would look into it if you're interested.
I know that Chris Do talks about that a lot. Basically, it's trying to evaluate the worth of the website that you're going to bring to the client, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you mostly get clients word of mouth, or do you do marketing? How does that work?
Everybody wants to, you know, to help each other to ultimately get the best, you know, out of everything that we do. So it becomes word of mouth. You join a community, you kind of share clients, you share expertise, you share services, and it just works really well for us.
What is the difference? What is the experience like of working with a top brand, using Elementor on a top brand and implementing the work? Is the process different? A lot of aspiring designers, that's what they strive to achieve.
I think that there's this kind of stigma attached to like larger companies or people that you may associate having a kind of higher kind of hierarchical stature, or however you want to kind of say it. And I think it's a bit strange because 90% of the time when you do sit down with bigger companies or people that are more well known than you within a certain industry, they're just people at the end of the day. So it's no different to working. If anything, sometimes it's even easier working for a larger company than it is a smaller company, because they're experienced in marketing. They understand I mean, there's a lot that goes into design, strategy and development of a website and process. So if they've got experience with that process, often it streamlines our process. It means that we don't have to do the educational piece, which of course we love doing and we enjoy talking to people about, but it's an addition of time. So definitely I think there's like for people, for designers or people or companies and agencies that are out there looking for bigger clients to work on, I think is just reach out, just talk to people, be straight, be who you are and be true to your values, sort of thing, because they're just people at the end of the day, and everybody just wants the best result. So, you know, like that would be like my advice on that one.
Oh, that's great advice, because I know it might be intimidating and yeah, picture everyone in their shorts, I guess.
100%.
Can you share?
Like, I find even just coming and doing things like this really intimidating, and I think it's important to talk about that sort of stuff. Yeah, like I find stuff like this extremely difficult. But if you don't talk about it, you're not honest about it, then you're only going to suffer yourself, because everybody finds things like this difficult. I think the more honest you are, the more open you are, the more collaborative you are, the better results you're going to get all around, both in your relationships and what you can deliver.
Yeah, that's just great advice in general in the world, because opportunities, you know, are always demand you go into the unknown, and you just have to dive in.
Yeah,
So,
I think
sure.
gone are the days when like you can just be a designer anymore. You know, I think you need to be and this is frustrating, but it's just the way that things move. I think you know, often you have to kind of be at least educated or have some sort of skills in, you know, whether it's animation, web design, you know, print design, artworking. They're always going to come back when you offer like an integrated, you know, agency offering. You know, someone might want a banner 1 minute that's getting printed on vinyl, and the next minute someone might want a full brand strategy. So you do have to try and be as diverse as you can with your skill set, but also acknowledge and make sure that you're always trying to find people that are experts in what they do, you know, that are expert animators, that are expert, you know, developers and stuff. We're always trying to make sure that we've got a roster of freelancers and people that can do better than we can. I think that's the right thing to say for any kind of good business model, is you hire and work with people that are have more expertise than you know. So we always try and do that.
For sure.
So.
For sure, outsourcing is no longer just a cost-effective move. It's actually a must if you want to grow your business and deliver the best results.
Well,
and you're growing your network.
Yeah, 100%.
Crisscross.
Yeah.
Okay, now we are going to the QA section of the webinar. So Georgia Kai would like to know if there are any prerequisite assets that you ask the client before a project.
Do you, in the terms of, do you mean like
images,
brand guidelines? Oh, okay, yes.
Images,
Absolutely. I think we've said that we always like to do this kind of brand audit in the beginning in our kind of discovery phase. So we'll look at existing assets, look at the current website, and also brand guidelines, anything like that. If it's a refresh, then it's not likely that we'll be using those assets to put into the new website, but it's something that we will reference as a sort of place that we're starting from. But if it's a case of we're building a website in a line to their guidelines, then yes, we'll be asking them for guidelines, typefaces, colors, assets, all of that kind of thing.
I think often as well with a refresh, like a brand, there's usually some sort of warmth around what they've, you know, the existing brand. So I think you do have to work quite closely with existing guidelines sometimes to make sure that you're not stripping out, like, you know, the things that are great or the things that the client loves about the business, you know, like whether that's a logo or a mantra or, you know, it could be anything.
Russ Michaels asks, do you have any advice for web designers and web creators that are starting out, and how they can level up their prices?
I think that there's a job to do for everybody, and that this is kind of subjective based on what your needs are, what you need to evaluate your costs. Because what my living costs and surviving costs are compared to yours may be completely different. Likewise, they might be different to Rich's. So I think you need to definitely sit down, work out what your costs are, and then find some way to you know, evaluate your time against them. So create some sort of model, even if it's not client facing, some sort of model that covers you for all of the things that you need to be covered and whatever extra, you know, you're budgeting for. So this is a really difficult question because it is so variable based on lots of people's different needs. So I'm just trying to think back, like, to some of the things that we like that you can factor in on that. Do you, can you know?
Yeah, so you really need to have, you have to have your base level. You have to know what's the lowest that you can afford to offer to live by and make a profit on it. It's important that whatever you're charging, you're making a profit on. You're not just, you know, averaging out, you're not just getting by. So have that as your basic level, and then it's really quite personal from that point on. I think you have to think about how much value you give to the client, and if your client isn't willing to pay for the value that you think that you give, then they're not the right client for you at all. And there's no way that you're going to be able to push them beyond that if that's not what they're willing to pay. You have to respect your craft and that you're worth paying for. And I think there's something intrinsic, unfortunately, in the industry that people aren't getting paid for the work that they do well. They're not getting paid well for the work that they do. And I think it needs to shift in that we need to be strong and say that we're worth this money, and you know, you're worth the work and effort that you put in. So ask for more, and if they won't give it, then they're not right, and move on.
And I think in addition to that as well, that sometimes that can be quite an easy thing to kind of say, but then obviously that leaves you with the question as a designer, well, you know, I've got a client the only clients that I've got are ones that don't pay me enough, sort of thing. Like, what do I do then? And I think that's when you need to take it upon yourself to find local things, sign up to creative newsletters, go to seminars, learn from people, collaborate, network as much as you can, put your name out there, you know, join community groups on Facebook with tools that you're using like we do, you know, join, you know, add your value to those types of things. Do stuff for free, you know, that will add value to your business, not stuff for free that will benefit someone else, that, you know, for the sake of you doing stuff on the cheap, but stuff for free that will get your name out there and get you recognized for what you believe in. I think that there's always that first kind of part of the question, and then I think the next one leads up to that question, which is what do you do afterwards? And I think that's key to it.
So Ollie, how can people reach you?
So if anybody wants to check out some of our work or what we're about, you can reach us on somethingfamiliar.com or .co.uk, whichever you choose. If you wanted to reach us on our socials, our Instagram is familiar something, so @familiar_something. And if you wanted to just get straight in contact with us and talk to us via email, you've got any questions, you can contact us at be@somethingfamiliar.co.uk. That's be@somethingfamiliar.co.uk.
Ollie, Bri, and Rich, thank you very much for spending the time with us and giving great insights into the work of web creator agencies. Thanks for everyone who's viewing this webinar. This is the first of its kind, so if you like it, be sure to write and comment and let us know what you think about it. If you have any suggestions or questions you'd like to add, be sure to subscribe, of course, to this video. So guys, thank you very much, and hope we can talk again soon.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us, Ben. Cheers.
Speak soon.